here wants to work in an office every day? I had to make sure you weren't in the wrong room. There were other great talks, and you would have needed to move to one of those. Okay, I'm Georgina. I am the head of data at Zedge. I've been a head of data for a long time, and I've been working with fully remote, highly international teams for about 5 years. And it's an interesting landscape to work in. I was a data scientist. If Checkers 6060 has ever given you like a really weak recommendation, that is because they must have replaced my system with something else. Because mine was amazing. I only have business degrees. I'm not going to flex on you with code. I'm doing the best I can. And I don't code anymore because I keep having to lead people. I did start out in R. I love it. But yeah, anyway. So I do work with people spread out all over the world, very different cultures, very different first languages, often doing me the honor of speaking to me in my first language, which is their second. And I will flex just for a second here. I know you haven't heard of Zedge, but we have 500 million downloads on Android and about 30 million monthly active users. It's, in the year 2025, a wallpapers and ringtones app for your phone. And we make a real fair amount of money. If we do not have a wallpaper you love, we also help you generate one, which we've been doing since last year. So it's a range of things, a lot of people from all over the world. And we're listed on the New York Stock Exchange, which rather elevates the stakes in terms of your data accuracy and reporting. People go to jail if I get that wrong. But it's not what I'm talking about today. So what I'm talking about today is just some of the stuff that I feel I've learned that is important, the stuff that has made a serious difference to me and my teams and the companies that I've worked at. And it falls into these topics: keeping a healthy diet of work, how to use Slack. If you're not using Slack, a lot of this is applicable to whatever you are using. Useful documents, video meetings, and then at the end I tell you a bunch of things that went wrong that were pretty funny, and how to avoid them. Okay, so straight into diet of work. In running any tech team, but I will speak to running a data team, you need to keep a mix of what everybody is working on certain genres of work, and it works exactly like a balanced diet. Mains, snacks, treats, and eat your vegetables. I have an 8-year-old daughter, I say that quite often, but I mean it differently today. A snack. What on earth is a snack? This is a piece of work where it's fairly short, it's inside of a fairly well-known solution space, and it's not going to take you more than a couple of weeks to get done. We had a really cool snack we did a while ago. If anybody here works around the paid marketing kind of vibes, you put out ads in the world for users to see so that they come and install your app, yeah? The thing is, we're kind of top of the search results if you look for mobile ringtones and wallpapers. We're right there. Zedge is #1. But we also have a very large marketing budget. And we were spending a whole lot of marketing budget, and we get a little ad just above our organic search result. And I don't know if anybody here has siblings, but it works a lot the same way. The organic search result earned its place right there at the top, and then this guy jumps in and grabs the credit because the person clicks on that. And so it looks like your marketing, your paid media is incredible. And that is called cannibalization. If you would have got this anyway, and then you paid to get this, that is cannibalization. So we had a situation where we shut off our global marketing for about 4 days. TikTok does this about once a year. It literally affects the entire marketing ecosystem. Not so much with us. But we shut it down. And what would happen if you shut down that annoying sibling? Suddenly, organic looks amazing. The number of installs attributed to organic just blossoms. So we run this experiment. Our data scientists put together a sweet little model predicting what organic should be over the period, accounting for a bunch of seasonality and other factors. And there it is. That's the shutdown period. This is a delicious snack for a data scientist, for a tech team. We've shown something very useful. The company jumps on it. They completely change how they spend their marketing because they've seen the light. There's a lot less cannibalization now. The dollars we do spend do work that needs to be done instead of jumping ahead of something that worked really well anyway. On to some veggies, though. These are tech debt, often. Dealing with this, addressing this thing, makes everyone's lives easier, and you know it's veggies if the phrase is, "We've been putting this off for too long." That's usually a sign this is a vegetable, right? I quite like my veggies because of what they've done for me. We did one of these fairly early on when I joined Zedge. It is a more than 10-year-old company, and that is more than 10 years of, I think we should track this, because I'm curious what they're really doing. Multiply that by 10 years, and I mean, nobody goes back and removes stuff once everyone loses interest in it. You have a huge amount of event bloat. So we did a mass audit of, I think, we were pushing 1,000 events, unique events that were firing off of our apps. And we asked, what does this mean? And no one in the business could tell us because it was like old and no one thought about it since then. We were also able to see if anyone had mentioned it in a SQL query in the last 6 months to a year, and they had not. These were signs that an event was no longer needed, and we ran a purge. We managed to reduce all the events by about nearly 37%. Like in that June, we had added to our BigQuery 16 billion events, and 6 billion of them were of no use to the business whatsoever. So we conducted the purge and saved about $7,000 a month in hot storage. I can see some people frowning. Don't worry, after that, we moved it to physical storage as well, so the savings kept coming. But this was a very good piece of veggies. The landscape was lighter and smaller, tables ran faster, jobs ran faster at night and didn't fail, and we ended up with a really good data dictionary about what those events meant. But on to the mains. Mains are very substantial projects. There are unknowns about that project, but if you pull it off, you could change the business substantially. That's how you know it's a main. But there is risk of partial or total failure. We did some mains. One of them was ripping out the recommender system. This is an app that serves content to users. We have a library of more than 20 million images, not counting even the sounds, getting into the sounds. 20 million images, 30 million monthly active users. We should probably match a user who wants to see a skeleton in combat gear with an assault rifle with that kind of imagery, and then not give that imagery to someone who's very interested in a very sweet deer in a forest with a little bit of snow on its nose. Like, those are different people. So we went ahead and did a better job of leaning the right way. We had gangbusters success in our first few models where we were working in some of our slightly smaller countries. We had, 20-30% increase in our North Star metric. We were on fire. We were the gods of the universe. And then we went on to one of our bigger markets, two of our bigger markets, and discovered not so much the scale owned us, but the maturity of the market and the sparsity of the matrix of interactions kicked our asses quite a bit. And we found ourselves now kind of in the battle of the Somme in data science terms. This is the nature of a mains piece of work, is you can find yourself slogging it out against hard problems. You have to manage morale during a mains project because morale can go down and up again. That is a clear example of a mains project. And then there are treats, and everybody likes treats. Treats are delicious. They're novel. They're low stakes, and they're very braggable. They are the things you will post on LinkedIn or your Substack or whatever. They're the ones you'll tell your partner about or go to the meetup and share if you can. I've got a few treats to share. This one, I know you can't read, and I know it's all purple, but this was how I could get it done. These are clusters of content according to our tags. Right over on the left there is animal, domestic cat, dog, cat. Yes, people like those things on their phones. Just to the right of that is rose, petal, flower, plant. That's where I hang out. And if we look bottom right little cluster there, that is the abstract ones. Circle, gradient, these kind of very vague, very Windows in the early 2010s backgrounds. People are super into those, but there's no identifiable object in them. So those are clusters. But the second thing about this was that I made my data scientist who ran all the clustering algorithms on this then go and put it in D3. So this thing jiggles. Like, it's got colors. You can grab the balls and pull them, and then they jiggle back, and the other ones jiggle. The different clusters are in different colors. And there's a very basic UI where you can increase the number of clusters or nodes inside it and really explore. And that's part of what makes it a treat, is there's a silly little extra thing. He'd never worked in D3, so he got to go and have an adventure. But also our stakeholders, executives, the people on the product side, got something they could actually play with. It is so hard to get those stakeholders jazzed about a table in BigQuery that didn't exist before, no matter how heroic you were to get it there. I gave them something tangible and non-technical that they had a blast with. Another treat, we went into LLM-based tagging of some of our wallpaper content. We had been running on some very vintage stuff, Microsoft Vision, Google Vision. That's good at telling you that there's a teapot in the image, but that's not how I look for things to put on my phone. Don't care, contains a teapot is not my vibe. So they were extremely good at talking about mood. So Microsoft Vision said cartoon, fiction, animated cartoon, illustration, hero, comic. Whereas even our first exploration in LLMs picked up that's Bart Simpson, sneakers, cigar. It gave us a mood. Cool, relaxed, casual, edgy, rebellious. The amount of information we got out of those LLMs was so rich, cheap at the price. And so this was a very fun treat for us, but more on what a treat is the later. It picked up some great stuff. Microsoft Vision really knocking it out the park here with outdoor, fog, bird, dark. So here's the thing about being tactical and strategic with your main snacks, treats, veggies, right? Start labeling your kind of projects this way and start being tactical. Snacks and treats delight your stakeholders. The people who don't push code love a snack and a treat because it gives them something they can touch or something they can really use right now, and it's awesome. They also have a habit of graduating into mains. So all of the LLM tagging that was a treat, oh, it's a main now, and that's real cool. We're just wrapping it up now. Veggies create the quality of life improvements that make the whole team happier. That's what means you're not fighting a dumb system anymore because you cleaned it up, you fixed it up. Oh God, it's so much nicer to live here now. Remember after the pandemic, everyone was stuck in their houses, and suddenly a lot of home improvement stuff started happening because you're trapped in there, and they made it better. But bear in mind, you cannot sit on snacks and treats forever. It's a bad idea. And the bad idea is, first of all, it cheapens your work, and it can make your skills pool a little bit shallow because you're always doing something with kind of a short-term delivery that's for fun, right? So it can cheapen the work a bit. And the other thing it does is it coaches the rest of the business to expect short delivery timelines from you. And if you do that over and over and over again, that becomes the baseline assumption, is that I'll have something amazing in 2 to 3 weeks to a month. That ain't the way, especially if you want to ship a meaningful main course. So don't live there forever. But be tactical as well. You can move a burned out team member onto treats. They need to go there for a bit. They're dying. Put them on treats for a bit. And you can also start a newcomer on some snacks. Let them have some shorter projects that can let them taste some success, produce something probably a bit useful, get a bit of profile in the company, give them the nice warm start in their first 2 to 3 months. You'll have better retention, but they'll also start to fly because you've given them that confidence. So be tactical how you dish these different kinds of work out. Take this language to your boss and argue for why you're doing it this way. This is about keeping a team balanced and happy. Okay, that's my halfway check, and we're doing all right. Yeah, that's the countdown. All right, glass of water and complete topic change. Right, how to Slack, which also means how to communicate. When I come into a team and take it over, or if I'm starting one, I make a few channels with a very specific intention. There's the hash data channel, because I'm head of data. That is general data announcements, work scheduling stuff, some horse trading on what jobs are going to get done. Questions from anyone, any question, even if they just think it belongs to data. I am always incredibly welcoming to anyone outside the team who is asking a question. No bad questions. I'm so glad you're talking to us in the hash data channel. But then I create a data engineering and a data science channel. That's for if that's your area of interest and you're going to be posting maybe some white papers or some links to deeper interest in that field. I like to keep that out of the main data channel. If that's sitting in the main data channel, many people in your business will look at it and go, oh, this place isn't for me. I need almost everyone to see hash data as for them. But then I do want people to have nice collaborative discussions about new research, so I give them topic channels. And then there's data team, and that's very private. That's my team. That's the people I directly manage. Nobody more senior than me goes in there. And if someone new is coming in, I tell everyone about it. There's a pause, there's a wait, and then that person can come in. It's our treehouse. It's a very important space where your team members can be a bit vulnerable. You have to set the example, share when you have screwed up so that they know that you screw up too, so that they share when they screw up. You can build a culture of honestly sharing when you have screwed up, because nothing is more damaging than screwing up and then trying to hide it. This is the room where you can demonstrate we share. It's also a good place for frustrations, maybe, within reason. Just saying someone's having a bit of a hard time, or a picture of their pet. Those are the little intimacies that you have to deliberately build in when you are working remote. No, you don't have to have a scheduled coffee meeting so that you can bond for this 30-minute period from 9:30 to 10. It doesn't work very well that way. Try get it going on like a micro level, organically, inside this room. So that's what that's for. No DMs. And when I say no DMs, I obviously don't mean 0 DMs. But if I start seeing that a lot of comms is happening in DMs, that is not ideal. One of the most common patterns I see is I hire lovely, helpful, clever people, and then stakeholders go, that's my go-to girl. And they're up in her DMs throughout the workday. Quick question, can you hop on a call? Can we do this? Now look, that's how they work, and it's a valid way of working, but it is destructive to the calm and focus that my kind of team member actually needs to get the right work done in the time we need it at good quality. So I fight the DM war. You don't make an announcement about this and walk away. This is the work you do every week to discourage big conversations from happening in DMs. Some of the people I hire are not so much junior. They're not junior at all. But they are fighting an internal personality that makes them want to go, yeah, I can do that for you. They're fighting their personality. So I've got a few stock phrases that I coach them on in their one-on-ones. And it's things like, you get that ping from even a very senior stakeholder, and you go, wow, okay, I can see this is really important. I'm going to need you to put this in hash data so that our PM can pick this up and make sure it gets prioritized appropriately, because they might have to bump some stuff out of the sprint. That's awesome. You're still being real nice, but you're saying, over there, you need to go there. And it's true. Another one is also, okay, I can see this is quite an involved and complex problem. I'm going to need you to pop this on the hash data channel for me, just in case some of my colleagues know more about this than me, or it might touch on some other areas. Please get it there so we give it the best attention. It's true, but it also gets them out of your DMs, and you carry on working on the work you were supposed to do today. How you communicate really matters, and saying that with some writing that's too small for you to read is a little ironic. But when you are going to be a remote team, or even a partially remote team, you need to be remote first, which means you need remote communication hygiene. You need to maintain that hygiene of communication. Write it down. Write it in the open. If you do that, you build accountability because it was written down somewhere. You actually build a documented history of conversations that happened, you promote a bit of wider learning, and you promote collaboration. I have been rescued by back-end engineers who were lurking in hash data, like I want them to, who saw I was about to do something and stopped me because it's not possible, and they saved me 3 weeks because it was written down, it was out in the open. And then you get all of the best things in life. Less key person risk, which means we can go on holiday and nothing falls apart. You have a stronger team. You have a team of people who are used to passing the ball to each other. Fewer heroes. You get better solutions. It's a much better solution if backend does tell you what is possible. And you have fewer unintended consequences, which is the same thing as better solutions. So, now to completely shift away from that, but on the theme of writing, useful documents. I'm a believer in documentation, but I hate most of the documentation I encounter, so I'm just going to share my strident views on this. A document is useful if it gets used. That's how you know it was useful. If it didn't get used, you failed in making a useful document. Go back and try again. You should write like a human. You are a human. Try write like one. If you struggle, GPT is getting better and better at it. Use the tools you can to write like a human. Link out of your document. Usually we use Confluence. Provide links in that document that go away to the very technical stuff. If there's a tech spec, tech diagram, if there's some deep detail about how a server works, link away to that, but preserve one document that is how a normal human would describe the situation. And the way that I train everybody on my team to write that sort of thing is, if you were in a noisy bar with a friend who's somewhat technical but not quite in your field, you have had 2 beers, not 3, you have had 2 beers. And if you're going to include a diagram, the only thing you have is 1 napkin and a pen. So that diagram is small and simple. That is how you should write your documentation. You know it's the right way if it's the kind of thing you say after, look, buddy, the way it works is. That is the opening phrase for the best explanation of how that system works. So see if you've gotten there, write that down, and that document gets used. I have written documents like that. Even stakeholders will use them. Confluence gives me the access logs, like the activity logs on my stuff, and I'm so jazzed when I see people referring to it later and later and later, and people outside our team. This is an example of some of our documentation that I spilled some paint on in the slightly sensitive areas, but it was a basic explanation of how our popular feed works, because it was a repeated question from stakeholders. They would look at our app and they'd go, wait, how do you rank this stuff? That's a repeated question. I use this article now. It saves me 20 minutes to an hour every time I send this link, and it works. It's a lot of hours. It's more than what it took to write it. Cool, I'll move faster on to, right, completely different topic, video meetings, which is how you know you're doing the work. So one of my things about video meetings, and I've got some rules later, but one of the main ones is build consensus around a diagram that you build during the meeting. People do tune out of meetings because all they can do is listen. I use Miro, you could use Figma or anything you like, but give them something they can touch too and move things around as well. We're working with very complicated things in our broader industry. Everybody's got a different picture in their head of how that thing works. But if you sit down with a blank page at the start of the meeting and together you make a picture together, now you've got the same picture of how this thing works. I'll give you some examples. This is one that I put up. I built this from a blank page during a 1-hour meeting. The meeting included our head of Android architecture and the product owner of what we were launching. They had had conversations that were a bit frustrating for a few days and also needed some tracking. It turned out my architect was talking about authentication tokens. Can we sort out the tokens? Our product owner was saying, yes, we do need to sort out the tokens. She was talking about the free tokens we're giving to the users as part of this campaign that they can spend on generation. And that misunderstanding hadn't been cleared up at all until we started making a diagram of what's this whole process we've actually built here. This includes the user actions are in one color, some back-end systems I think are in green? I don't know. I can't quite remember. And then there's some third-party platforms that are also supplying encrypted links and things like that. And I laid it all out like this. And I tell you what happens with a diagram like this, is I make it mostly, and then you watch your participants, and you do something a little bit wrong. And they lean forward, you see their face get right up close to the camera, and they go, no, it doesn't work that way. And suddenly their cursor moves in Miro, and they're like, it's more like it moves here, and then it goes down there, but then this system doesn't talk to that system. Amazing. There is nothing more powerful than being slightly wrong in front of an engineer. You have them. I've done it on purpose once. But they lean in, they grab hold, and they will not stop until it's right. And that is an amazing meeting engagement. And it means my diagram's actually right, because I don't know. So we ended up with a diagram that was right. We ended up with 2 people on the same page. We ended up with some extremely clear JIRA tickets of what actually needed to be done, and we identified 2 problems in this flow that were going to be showstoppers. Work around a diagram that you build together. I will say, if you walk into that meeting with a diagram already, that's less powerful. People are like, oh, you've done a thing. You know, and it's a little bit too much to absorb all at once. But them watching you build it from scratch as you go, works well. This is a different one. We used this for brainstorming the data team's year-long roadmap. We did the thing with the brainstorming. I gave everybody little golden stars that they could put on the different things. I wrote down all their ideas. Even just positioning the little golden stars gives them something to do with their hands. I'm confident when I say we all have ADD, and the entire internet and all of its knowledge is on your other screen. I understand people multitask during meetings. But if I let you move the little stars around, you mostly stay on my screen, which I like. So that was that exercise. This is a grand map of our data architecture and pipelines. This one, I had sequential meetings. So I built this diagram and then had one-on-one meetings with each of, I think, the 5 or 6 engineers behind the data pipelines, one by one. And again, it was slightly wrong, and I got fierce engagement from them as we made it right. But we ended up with a global view that the company had never had before. And we started to see some problems that you can only see at a global level about how this was all laid out. So anyway, Miro is super fan. But onto the other kind of video meetings, which is one-on-ones. They're the backbone of remote work. People care because of the one-on-ones. I know some people hate one-on-ones. I see them as actually my primary job. Make a space for the person you're having the one-on-one with, for their one-on-one. Make a space that works for them. I had one guy who needed an hour, sometimes an hour, 15 minutes. And we would small talk for about 30 minutes, sometimes around 35, 40 minutes. He would have kind of small talked around into having an actual revelation about stuff that was going on at work that was making him less efficient or making him less motivated. But he got there. And it was profound, the changes he was then able to make because he'd had this dawning realization. But his timeline was around minute 35 or 40, and we probably needed to land the bird, so we needed to go a little over time. Okay, but I had another one where his regular half-hour one-on-one was agony for both of us. Because 30 minutes was an event horizon of eternal small talk that was not his strong point. And so we'd both buckle in for the worst meeting of our lives for 30 minutes. And we never covered anything of substance, and it was uncomfortable. I changed them to 15 minutes, and they've changed. 15 minutes for this quite reserved guy means he's under the gun. There's a countdown, it's only 15 minutes. And what I see him doing is he sits there and he goes, I actually need to stop working on this project. I'm having problems with this project because it's actually quite nuanced, but it's changed over the last 3 months and it's the only thing I'm doing, and I'm finding it extremely difficult to do quality work on this. And I'm like, amazing. What are we going to do about it? And we get into a topic. So a 15-minute one-on-one with this guy is very impactful. They used to be before stand-up, so that there was a hard stop. I've had to move them after stand-up. There's still 15 minutes. But he keeps bringing up stuff that's awesome, and we need the extra 5 to 10 to process it. So build a one-on-one that works for someone. Also, we don't have the luxury of corridor chatter or breaking bread together. Do everything you can to get that goodness from your remote team, but please don't schedule those weird bonding meetings. Those don't work. Build it in organically. Ask me if you want to know more about it, but I'm running short of time. My general global rules for meetings, cameras on. I don't negotiate about that. Fight with me afterwards. Everybody has a camera. If you're in a meeting room and there's two of you, you are 3 pixels on a postage stamp on my screen. I don't know who said what, and I'm also really bad with names. If you are going to be in a meeting room and remote, open your laptop and have it on your face so I know who said that. That would be helpful. If you're having a hard meeting, whether it's good, hard, bad, hard, whatever it is, as a manager, I would suggest you make eye contact, and what I mean by that is gaze into the camera. During the difficult moments, gaze into the camera. It's not for you, it's for them. Because they sense a stronger connection that you are there with them in this difficult conversation. Show your hands from time to time. Just run them through your hair or something. Show that you are not multitasking. It's a nice non-verbal signal. If you wear glasses, we can see. We can see what you're doing. If you are writing notes, which is a very good habit in meetings, even one-on-ones, always say so. Hey, this is important stuff, I'm just taking it down. Or, hey, I really don't want to forget this, I am just taking notes on the side here. But announce it to them that that's what you're doing. And get a good camera. All right, we got a couple minutes for me to tell you about some funny stuff. One of my favorite people I ever worked with was Marta. She's Spanish, and she would respond to a lot of things with that emoji. And I eventually realized I should just ask, and I said, Marta, when you post this, what does it mean to you? And she's like, happy, smile, good, yes. And I said, okay. We were on a video call, so I said, when I see that, what I see is this face. And she went, oh, no, that's not what it means. So I said, okay, no, maybe this is a Spain thing, like in Spain it rolls differently. She was like, yeah, maybe that's it. Isn't that interesting? I was like, that's fascinating. That evening, I got a message from her, and she said, it's not a Spain thing. It's a Marta thing, because she'd asked her boyfriend. And she'd had friends who'd recently had babies and been like, my baby. And she'd been like... So Marta was glad to disambiguate that. Gestures as well. If you ever go, well, we'll see how the project goes, be sure what this means in the home country of the person you are speaking to. They don't mean the same thing. This is, I hope so, but is it? And sometimes if the hand's going the other way, it means something different. Check with your internationals. I thought I was safe using smiley, simple smiley. No. Simple smiley is apparently passive-aggressive, if you're Gen Z. Now you know I didn't. And then the last one is just on nationalist assumptions. You're working with people from different countries. Those countries might be in the news. Ours is. Just because you know someone from country X doesn't mean they now have to be your source or pure representative of what's going on there. There can be a lot of cultural factors that you think you might know. They're from Korea. They must have conflict aversion. That is not necessarily true. South Africans have an average height, and I am not it. So don't bring those in. And if after 2 years of working together you're not sure what their political leanings are, and they're not sure what yours are, you have done a good job. If you keep that on the DL, you preserve everyone's dignity. Just let it lie. Sometimes, though, if something hectic's going on, you're working with a Ukrainian a couple years ago or now, I think the best and only appropriate thing you can ask them as a manager is, are you being impacted by what I'm seeing in the news? And leave it open. If someone's doing this to you, my deferral tactics are, yeah, he's an interesting guy. Or it's an interesting situation. Or it's pretty complex, but I'm not a sociologist, so I don't understand. Or the strongest one is, I try to think about it as little as possible, but I find it really distracting. Work is my escape from that. It's a strong pushback, even against someone really senior. Remote is amazing. It's changed my life. It's changed the economics of my family. It's broadened my career and the places I can work. Remote is worth fighting for. Take this toolkit, go fight. And rate the talks, because you can win prizes, and I want feedback.